May I have your attention, please? I'd like to recognize Mr. Holden.
Lord, the families they represent, Lord, the community that we live in that, Lord, is drawn towards you. Lord, we're just thankful for the blessing to live in this part of the country. Lord, I pray that you'll just guide our thoughts and everything we do. Lord, we'll give you the praise and honor. It's in Christ's name that I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would, please stand with us and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us this evening. We'd like to go ahead and start with our first item on the agenda, the consent agenda, which includes the approval of agenda, the approval of the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget meeting minutes of June 10th, 2024, the approval of the board meeting minutes for June 10th, 2024, the approval of minutes from a special call meeting June 26, 2024, and approval of the meeting dates for our school year 2024-2025, the approval of overnight field trips, and the approval of check registry. So there, we would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler.
I'd like to second.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Nope. It's unanimous. Thank you. Our next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Mark Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome to our school board. Welcome back from summer break. I know we took a break from July, so it's glad to have everybody back, and welcome back with the community. I'd like to give a brief update before I recognize two wonderful students. We've had a tremendous last 2 weeks in Spartanburg District 1. We tried something different this year. We went completely online registration, took the leap of faith. We've been dabbling in it for the last few years. Well, this year we jumped both feet in, and before our Meet the Teacher Day last Tuesday, we already had 91% of the district registered. That is unheard of territory. Normally, your Meet the Teacher registration days, when you bring everybody in, they do all the paperwork. I heard countless compliments from parents saying, thank goodness I didn't have to fill out all the car dealership paperwork. You know, it's just like buying a car or a home when you go fill out everything. So a lot of compliments from teachers and staff. It took the edge off for the first day of meeting the teacher. And that's what we were able to focus on last Tuesday. Students got to meet their teachers. So wonderful, wonderful thing with that. And then to start school today, was able to go to all 11 schools and see mostly smiling faces. Now, there may have been a couple that may have wished they were still on summer break, which I get it. At the elementary schools, it's funny because the principals rated off how many little ones are crying. So I was told today the cry meter was very low in District 1 for the 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. But the word is that there was some crying at Landrum, Keegan, and somebody told me it was the principal. But I haven't confirmed that. But we had a really good day. It was great to see the kids and to see the kids back safe and sound and in our schools, see the staff smiling and beaming with pride. We have a lot to be thankful for. We are very, very blessed. And we're excited. I am really excited. My staff's excited about this school year because, again, this is only I'm starting my second year. Feels like I've been here a while because it feels like home. But to start our second year and just to have everyone highly motivated to serve our kids, I can't say enough about our staff. They love our children, they work well with each other, and we're just very, very blessed here in Spartanburg District 1. So now I would like to honor two of our special students, and I would like for Mr. Brent Cobb, Director of Spartanburg County Veterans Affairs, and Miss Ann Ring, who is chairperson of the Stand Down Committee, with Charles Judge, to meet me at the podium so we can recognize two very special cadets. Mark. Had to do a mic switch on y'all. Colonel Jeff Owens, come down as well, please. Come on, Colonel. Come on. Keegan, come on. Come on. Colonel Owens is our ROTC instructor at Landrum, and of course Keegan Flynn, Dr. Flynn is our principal. I can't speak enough about JRTC. Being in public school for this now my 27th year, I can't tell you the impact I've watched for 26 years JRTC programs have had on our students in Spartanburg County. You see kids connect with their instructors, and you see a servant's heart. And you see these kids, and oftentimes several of them do go on to serve our great country in the military. So I can't brag enough about JRTC, and this is going to further that. So proud of these two fine young men. It's my pleasure today to announce that the South Carolina Senate has recognized the quick response of two Landrum High School cadets who came to the immediate aid of a man who suffered a cardiac crisis during the Charles Judge Veteran Stand Down on March 8, 2024. The students began treating the man for shock after catching him from collapsing. The action was witnessed by Principal Ty Dawkins. He's the principal at R.D. Anderson Technology Center. An effort to recognize these students was taken up by Miss Ann Ring, chairman of the Stand Down Committee, and Mr. Brent Cobb, who's with us tonight, director of the Spartanburg County Veterans Affairs, and brought to the floor of the state senate by Senator Josh Kimbrell. Senator Kimbrell could not be with us tonight. He sends his regrets. He is a little under the weather, but we appreciate him for honoring our students. Ms. Ring would like to present at this time two Senate certificates of appreciation to these students at this time. Come on.
Cadet Caden Morgan.
Come on down. Also, I would like to mention that Senator Tim Scott, our U.S. Senator, wrote these fine young men a letter of appreciation and accommodation as well. And then our school board would like to recognize both of you young men as well. Caden Morgan, big round of applause. And then Mr. Kinsey Cummings.
Say it takes a village to raise a child. This is the village right here. The support of Principal Flynn and the superintendent and all these other people here, the families, really appreciate it. These guys, thank goodness they listened at one time and treated them for shock, but thank you very much for recognition.
The gentleman y'all helped, he passed away Friday. So we, for what y'all done that day, I fantastic job, and that man just went back. I'm District Two, but y'all have a great man running y'all's junior ROTC program.
District Two's not getting him, so he's gonna
So I'm thinking about moving.
Morgan? Oh, all right, all right. Congratulations. Cadet Morgan just graduated. That's awesome. Basic training. Good job. While I'm up here, we do have two board members to recognize as they have completed another level of training in the Boardmanship Institute training program with the South Carolina School Board Association. I'd like to recognize Miss Debbie Baker for completing level 2. Congratulations, Miss Baker. Round of applause. Also completing level 2 is Miss April Fowler. Congratulations, Miss Fowler. Yeah, don't go looking for a bonus check. Thank you, Barbara. Mr. Chairman, guys, thank y'all for a great day. Thanks, community. Thanks to the teachers. It's going to be a special year. Cannot wait to start tomorrow. We had a great day today. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. And congratulations to all the recipients. And we certainly do appreciate your service. Our next item would be the personnel report. Dr. Beeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. You should have a personnel report in your board packet. I would like to ask that you accept the resignations that were effective at the end of the 23-24 school year that were included in your packet.
I make a motion that we accept the 2 resignations that were effective at the end of 23-24 school year. They're in our board packet.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Hopper. We have a motion and a second to accept the resignations. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hands. Any opposed? Thank you. It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I would ask that you accept the recommendation for approval for employment for the 24-25 school year, which is also in your board packet.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the approved employment for 24-25 school year of the said 4 employees, and as indicated in our board packet.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Have a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beeson. Yes, we appreciate all our guests here tonight, but we won't keep you for the whole meeting. If you, anybody that would like to be dismissed, feel free. You can go.
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah.
But this would be a good time to go if you want to go ahead and go.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for coming. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, our next item is our policy report. Ms. Tesnier?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Smith, Board of Trustees. Tonight, I bring, on behalf of administration, 11 policies. This is the first half of Section D. They're pretty straightforward policies, and at this time, we recommend these policies for a first reading.
I make a motion that we accept these policies for a first reading.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Thank you, Ms. Fowler. We have a motion to accept the policies as first reading. Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
If we have some suggestions or changes, we can email
Absolutely.
those to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Or
If
do we
you'll,
need to discuss them now, or just email
if you'll email them to me,
Okay.
and then we'll take those into consideration,
them? Okay.
and then bring forth a second reading per se in advance of the next meeting in your board packet, so that they will be ready for your review, and you can vote on them at that time.
I would like just to say these policies in Section D have to do with financial policies, just so that the
Yes, it's primarily your state law and your federal laws regulating the district. You know, if there's taxing entities, of course, that needs to be approved by the Board of Trustees, noticed in the paper, and so on. I would say 90% of them are state-related funding policies and guidelines through the state legislature.
May I ask for clarification? for something as
Absolutely,
it
yes, ma'am.
Could you please clarify crowdfunding?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And Mr. Atkins would probably love to clarify as well. So many of our wonderful educators in our district, from time to time, have wonderful intentions of outsourcing funds for their classroom. This can be anything from a GoFundMe to a Donors Choose. And so a lot of times, because people are so gracious in our community, they will give to the Donors Choose and the GoFundMe, and sometimes the principal has no idea. And there's many, many times that technology is tied to that. And so when community members and others are giving to a Donor Choose or a GoFundMe, they're expecting those dollars to go straight to that project, correct? So this is a safeguard to make sure that principals know what is happening on the internet. They know what is going out there for what teachers are requesting, what educators are requesting. And so it's more of a safeguard to make sure that we have the technology infrastructure that can support those items, that we can ensure that those dollars that are raised online are actually going to the students in that classroom, if that makes sense.
Yes, so it could be goods or money, and how is it then dispersed or
Sure.
allocated for the school? How do we know if a teacher comes in with, how do we know she got that, or he got the money or the materials?
That's why this is going to be in place.
So they have to report it to the principal?
Well, that's why we're going to pass this policy, so that we do have some safeguards in place, so that we exactly know what's being funded. And then, you know, let's say, what if the GoFundMe doesn't meet the goal? What happens to the funds then? You know, because obviously the entire project wasn't necessarily completely funded. So does the teacher have half the money, and does she continue to maybe open up her deadlines his or her deadlines a little bit more? are there funds, elsewhere that maybe we could match? And then also making sure that, you know, our principals, that they've gone to their principal to make, you know, hey, I'm looking for this. And the principal may say, well, hey, I know this new initiative that's just come out, that I know a great grant that we can write to fund that. So it's really just checking a lot of boxes. And Ms. Brady and I have talked about this policy for quite some while, and Mr. Atkins as well. As you can see, there's many different layers to it, and it's just a really good safeguard, not only for those contributing to it, but those who are asking for the contributions as well. And then us making sure that we have the infrastructure, and then also tagging the equipment, because it is essentially a school district item.
Wanda.
One,
So like, if I see something on Facebook, for example,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
a teacher has put out there, and they've got their Amazon wish list out there, does any of this fall under this, or is this different?
This is totally
Okay.
opposite.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to
Yes,
clarify
ma'am.
in my mind.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Let's say, let's just use me for an example. If I go out there and I create a GoFundMe, and I use my name, my title, my place of work, and I say that I need a brand new camera, let's say for an intern. Someone knows that they are contributing for a camera for an intern, right? So I can't go and take the money and go and buy a computer with it.
Right,
Okay, it is intended to do exactly
okay.
what it's portrayed online.
That was, that's a lengthy policy, and
Yes, ma'am.
jumping around and trying to make sure we're
It's
understanding
one that is
it.
definitely needed.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. McDowell, for that.
Is there a complementary policy for technology that excludes or ensures that only devices that we want to have on the network can be on the network?
Well, through this policy, it does have to check that box.
But this is specific for crowd funding.
Yes, sir.
So
So are
if
you speaking of
someone
a
could
personal?
independently come and bring something and,
I don't think we're quite to that section of the policy yet, but I think it's coming.
okay.
First bullet says that request the purchase or use of technology is not compatible with the district's current or future plans for the purchase and or use of technology. So I think it's covered in this for crowd, but it is gonna be covered in another section, I think.
Yes.
It should be.
Great question.
Any further discussion?
The out-of-district tuition
Yes, ma'am.
do you have, these people that are out of district, I know you have your guidelines you go by to determine your tuition amount.
Yes, ma'am.
Does this have to be paid in full? Do you do payments?
No,
or
ma'am. We're
quarterly?
very,
And who monitors those payments?
great question.
And if they don't pay, what do you do?
Okay, so we're gonna break it up into smaller chunks. We offer different payment plans for parents, because we understand that that is a large amount. So you can do a 10-month payment plan, you can do a 6-month payment plan, 3 months, pay it all in one sum, totally up to the parent. Miss Lauren Brown monitors that. She also works closely with Dawn Robertson and Miss Brady to keep up with that, as well as Miss Brooks and Dr. Beeson. If someone does not make the payment, unfortunately, reminders are sent. And then at the end of the school year, we do have to cut those ties with that family, because it's not fair for all of our other tuition-paying parents. Because they do sign a contract, Ms. Hopper, that says that they will remain within good standing financially, but also the student must remain in good standing as well, academically, attendance, behaviorally. So they sign that contract in advance, and we give them a copy of the contract, and we keep a copy. So that's also sent as part of the reminder as well.
Once that money is paid, whether it's 2 months or 6 months or whatever the length is, if they decide to quit or transfer to another district,
Sure.
is that money refundable?
Yes, sir. We have issued refunds, and I will tell you, Mr. Skinner, you know, we've had some families that are very anxious to be here, and that are actively, that have looked for land and that have, let's say, purchased their land, and then, God, it's August the 12th. You can see that I've purchased my land. I'm looking for an active builder to build it. We can even start those payments, and I always tell them in that position a couple years ago that we can prorate it per the day. So the day that they do move in that residential home inside of our school district, if they paid monthly, we'd even prorate it and cut a check for the other half.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question too on DD, which is the funding proposal grants and special projects.
Okay.
So under the donations from the private sources, there was a strike through where the board does not approve gifts.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain that for me?
Absolutely. So, and you know, as I take all policies from different sides and different angles, correct? So, if somebody donates a tuba to Landrum High School, do we need to bring it before the board the next month for approval? Or can the individual just donate the tuba and say, this is for use of Landrum High School's band? Same thing with any kind of donation of school supplies, of any monetary value. So that's why I did strike through that and added the line of the gifts and donations will be agreed upon the donor and the administration.
So if someone gave the district some property, we wouldn't have to sign off on that?
Now, in that manner, I think that you definitely would have to sign off on that. And that would be covered under the section F.
Okay, okay. That's what that was.
Yes, ma'am.
On DGA, authorized signatures, are there two signatures at the school level on checks with maybe like the, I know there's segregation of duties and stuff like that that apply when checks are being written? Like this, like the principal may sign off on the check, but is there another signature there? And that might be a Lacey question, I don't know.
Currently, all checks that flow from the school flow from the district office, so.
That's right.
Yeah, they would all just have, superintendent's signature.
Okay, so there's just one signature on the checks, okay, well, that answers that, okay, that answers that question, okay.
Yes, sir.
So that there's no checks written and issued from the school level. They all come from the DO.
All of them are issued at the district office.
Okay.
I defer to Ms. Brady for check writing. Mr. Skinner, did you?
Yes, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
It's on the DDA, Federal Fiscal Compliance.
Yes, sir.
Talks about awarding contracts only to responsible contractors. If a subcontractor wins a contract, can he resub that out to another subcontractor at the federal, state, or through our procurement policy?
Mr. Skinner, I'm going to defer to either Mr. McCraw or Ms. Brady for that question. My apologies.
Most of the time, if it is a bid or proposal, we have stipulations written within the bid or proposal packet that either allows or does not allow a subcontractor to be involved with the actual contractor that bidded the project. So it really just depends. As we write
So it is possible for a subcontractor to resub the job out to another subcontractor.
It's possible for a contractor to submit it to a subcontractor. We're typically not gonna sub something to a sub and it continues to sub.
So the general contractor can give somebody the subcontract.
That's correct.
But once that's done, he can't give, the subcontractor can't give it to another subcontractor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCraw.
I have one other question on DGA. Could you please just explain and this may be also a Lacey's question, that the voucher process from the treasurer? Funds held for the district by the county treasurer may be withdrawn upon presentation to the county treasurer of a voucher
I
or
think-
vouchers
I think that's the drawing down of our funds from the county office.
through a voucher process?
Okay. Okay, that's a good question. So the Spartanburg County Treasurer, they hold majority of all of our funds. So
Right.
all of our tax revenues, our federal revenues, state revenues, all of that flows through them. And so what we do is we submit what's called a voucher when we get ready to draw down funds. So we don't draw down funds, you know, we keep the funds with the treasurer until we
Right.
need them to pay our bills, so that we don't have bukus of money sitting in, you know, a bank account or whatever. And it just helps us kind of monitor what's going in and out of our account. So that's what that voucher process is talking about.
Really a voucher, yeah, so it's
Yeah,
our money.
It's
yeah.
not really about, it's, you know, it's,
Okay.
it's a
Okay.
request for funds, is
Okay,
basically what it is.
yeah, that voucher word just threw me off.
Right.
I'm sorry, yeah.
To Mr. Steve Skinner's question, so if something is subcontracted, I know that there are certain rules of information that our contractors have to keep for federal funds. Is that then passed down to the subcontractor that they, because wasn't there something in the audit this past year about they didn't provide some certain information in the right amount of time, one of the contractors? I just wondered if that, I don't know if Ms. Brady can answer that.
That, what you're referring to, that was related to Davis-Bacon. And so that was where the subcontractor was required to, give the school district, the pay information for the individuals who worked on those projects. So all of that information is technically given to the district, and we hold that for, you know, anything that's required of the federal programs, the contractor is required to give us that. And they had given us that, just not necessarily they didn't give it to us in a weekly manner. So typically, what's happened in the past, when you have Davis-Bacon, sometimes they don't give it till after, they don't give you that information until after the project's complete. But technically, they should be giving you that on a weekly basis, so that's what that was.
So is there something that you would recommend that we put into policy, that if it is subcontracted, then that information has to be provided to the contractor, who then has to provide it to us? Does that need to be in policy, or is it already in the procurement policy?
That's actually in our federal policies. I wouldn't recommend keeping it here, because Davis-Bacon is not required unless you're using federal dollars. So we don't actually have to follow Davis-Bacon when we do subcontracting unless we're using federal dollars to do those things, and we don't typically do that. The ESSER funds were kind of one of those one-off situations where they allowed the use of those, but typically they don't allow you to use federal dollars for construction projects
Gotcha.
anymore. Or most people don't choose to because of the paperwork.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Lacey, could you define Davis-Bacon, or what, Davis-Bacon, like bacon? What is Davis-Bacon?
I'm gonna try my best, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have it in front of me. Davis-Bacon,
Is it a
requires
guideline
that
type thing you have to
fair
follow?
wages, that it basically requires a contractor to pay a fair labor to the workers who are doing that project.
Is
making
it like
sure
a
they're not
state or a
underpaid.
federal guideline? Is it a
Federal.
federal? Okay, all right, that answered my question, because I was like, Davis-Bacon. Okay, All righty, thank you. I have one more, and this is probably a Lacey too. Lacey, in looking at DFAC, which is fund balance, do you know what our target fund balance amount is? Because I know we've discussed, our fund balance is good.
Our fund balance is great.
But, and I know that there's some things gotta take place this year.
Right.
But what is our target, based on reading this, what would be our target? Because it says, so many operating
Talks about a month's worth of
months,
operation.
do you,
The-
and if you don't know, we'll get it next time.
Oh,
I'm
no,
just
I
asking.
can give you a good answer. The state Department of Education, in their fiscal compliance, in their, they actually require us to, we are supposed to keep 8.33% of your, the average of the prior 2 years' total expenditures in your general fund. So you would take, so for instance, when we're looking at it this year, you would take FY 22-23 and FY 23-24, and you would take those, you'd average them, and you'd multiply that by 8.33%, and that's what you should always maintain. I would say you would want to maintain more than that. But from the fiscal compliance level with the state, it has to be 8.33%.
Okay. Because I know there's, they're reviewing fund balances. They did this several years ago, and so we don't want to lose any money because we've got money sitting somewhere that we could shift it somewhere else.
And
That's my concern.
Barbara, that's a great point, and we've got plans coming, as we promised, by the end of September, we will have a work session, another building and grounds work session, where we continue to look at our study, and this time we'll be presenting a plan. So that'll be late September. I'll work with getting Mark on the dates, and we'll talk about that, which you just brought up.
And this might be for Ms. Brady too, but under DC, taxing and borrowing, sorry, you're gonna have to get back up. There is, under borrowing, it's talking about the tax anticipation notes, and the last sentence is the board must approve the issuance of tax anticipation notes. That's something that we vote on. That, I think the phrasing of that is that the board must vote on that. Is that correct? Or is it, we're required to approve it?
It functions kind of like our SCAGO program, with our resolution. So the tax anticipation note would be the TAN.
Right.
We've been fortunate enough, we haven't had to do that. So we would come before you kind of like we do with the SCAGO program and ask you to approve the resolution for that.
Okay, but we don't have to approve it, okay? So we
Well-
might want to,
Well,
do we have to approve it, like the board must approve?
If the funds are not, if we do not have that,
We would have to approve it.
that 8.33 and above
Gotcha,
to make at least the first couple months payroll and whatnot.
okay,
it's for cash flow.
So maybe.
right, but we haven't had to
take a
do that the last couple of years, have we?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that's awesome, thank you.
Maybe I can
We might have
take
to
a
look at
stab
that
at
one, yeah.
rewording that
Yeah.
in a more appropriate manner so that it would flow better.
DFA, revenues from investment, you have taken all of this out. You've striked through all of that.
I did.
You did.
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying, that last paragraph is, so on our investments, do we have investments? We don't have,
We don't physically invest anything, investments would be at the county level. So
Okay.
whatever funding they have at the county level, they take that and they invest.
they're still doing that though, right? Okay, that was my question, because with all this, and some of it was kind of repetitive in this second paragraph. So I was like, okay, she's getting rid of that because it's saying it
And I'll
down
be
here.
honest, I took a wide glance at all of Spartanburg County, Greenville, Union, Cherokee, and a couple other school districts. And it appeared that most of them were going towards the language at the bottom.
Okay. I just want to make, because it's still in there, but then,
Yes, ma'am.
it
A
gets
little bit
o-
shorter.
It's overwhelming reading these things.
Yes, it is.
Well, now, excuse me, but now I took that to be, where it mentions bond issues, that it would be money we actually had from bond issue that we could invest during the process to keep it from just sitting idle. And so it could apply to us
Yes,
under
sir.
certain circumstances.
And that's why it's in there. That's why I didn't delete it. And then, that's why I also struck through the front, building fund investment, because the board may want to invest in other means, not just,
Well,
that.
the investment word itself is that, it was always good for the county to keep that. And I think you do when you're building and stuff like that, on the bonds, don't you draw that money
to my knowledge.
Yes.
Okay,
She's saying
yes.
yes,
She's
okay.
checking yes.
through the, okay, I'm just trying to,
Any further discussion? Seeing none?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I do have one. I have one other on DA, fiscal management goals and objectives. In a timely manner is mentioned a lot within that. And so has there ever been any consideration to actually put a time frame on budget preparations, management, approvals from the board?
I will be honest.
Thank you.
In reading the policy, and once again comparing it to other school districts, no one placed a timeline. However, if the board would like, we could do an administrative guideline to this that maybe would outline our FY budget preparations for the future, if the board so chooses.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't that kind of what the audit committee does, to lay out the timeline with the auditor, or is, well, I guess that's the audit, not the budget, but we're talking about
Your entire
what
budget,
Ms.
yes, ma'am.
Brady has presented to us in the past, is we're starting here, and then we're gonna do this here, and so
Correct.
it's kind of already in place, but not in policy, I
Yes,
guess.
ma'am.
any further discussion?
Sorry.
Go right ahead.
There are some things with federal monies, and the state budget has provisos that conflict currently with some of the federal guidelines, federal ruling out of the Fourth Circuit. I don't know if we could just delay the federal monies thing for a while until we see that things are likely to be taken up by the Supreme Court this year. But some of those say, if we intend to follow, let me pull it up, sorry. This is something we probably will need to get legal advice, but the district intends to comply with all requirements for state and federal grants and awards imposed by law. But there are some things, some state provisos specifically that conflict with federal court ruling, and that involves federal monies. So that's DDA, policy DDA, and I'm not sure if we want to go ahead and pass it and then amend it based on what happens this year, or if we want to just hold off on DDA. Or if, I think you and I talked about, does this include all federal monies? It seems to in the first bullet statement, but if it doesn't, does it include all federal monies, or we're?
I'm going to check with the
Okay,
attorney on
all right,
that verbiage.
I think that's something that we probably should get legal advice on, please.
in the federal money, does the travel guidelines differ from the regular district as far as reimbursement? Are you following the same across the district
It is.
with like travel reimbursement or per diem or whatever?
We do try to, for the most part, it's the same.
Okay,
I will say, though, that travel under federal programs is more stringent.
Yes.
So, that all has to be approved,
Okay.
before it happens. But we do try to be consistent so that everything's, makes sense.
I'm sorry, I do wanna just make sure I understand, Ms. Baker's question. So the federal guidelines, state guidelines are different, so we would have to follow whatever the state and whatever the federal imposes. How would they intertwine?
So there's currently, with federal funds, there's a couple of things. One is we're under a ruling from the Fourth Circuit with regard to bathroom issues with privacy and the 14th Amendment. There's a ruling on that. Our state proviso is the opposite of that ruling. So our state budget proviso says that if we receive state funds, we're not to provide separate.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, so and then the Title IX, the Attorney General that's a stay on the Title IX from the Biden administration. But if you just talk about the ruling of the Fourth Circuit and our state budget proviso that just went into effect July 1st, then it's at odds. They're opposite. So I don't know personally what you do about that as far as if we put in policy, we're gonna follow federal, then are we at risk for losing state funds if we do what the federal ruling says? So, I mean, it's something that the Supreme Court declined to take up in January of this year, but the feeling is they will take it up next session because there's a lot of the circuits that have ruled, the 11th Circuit ruled the opposite, so the Supreme Court should take that up this year and rule in June of next year. So, but right now, it's all in flux.
I guess my question
Kind of
was,
wait till it happens
Yeah.
and then address it?
Well,
Or-
that's what
How
I'm
could you-
thinking,
how-
or
we
get
don't wanna
legal
get
advice on what
put
do we
the
do?
Cart before the horse, and just,
I guess I was under the impression that federal money came with the federal regulations.
It
State
does,
money
yeah.
comes with the state regulations, and so, but now you're saying that they may intertwine at different
in
things.
this
so
particular, yeah.
I guess that's what I
That
was,
Title IX issue is what's causing it.
Yes.
But would we not be safe to go ahead and express in our policy that our intent is to
whatever the state.
follow the rules and regulations or laws?
As long as that's okay with us ending up in court there,
But-
losing state money. I mean, that's where I think
Right.
it would end up in court. And we have, put in our policy that we're gonna follow this. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I really think we need guidance before we put
That's
something
right.
in school policy.
And we'll seek that with our
That's a good idea.
legal folks.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Well, we would currently have policy for that now, wouldn't we? I mean, is this a new policy or this is a rewrite?
We could decide not to entertain this policy. It's a recommendation of the School Board Association, but we don't currently have DDA, so this is a new policy. Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? So, do we We have a motion and a second to approve as first reading. Do we need an amendment to pull that policy? Or do we shape it around?
Administration is currently recommending it for a first reading at this time. Of course,
Okay,
clarification.
and then seeking clarification? Gotcha, okay. So then the motion would be to approve all the policies as first reading?
As a first reading.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Tesnier. And thank you for the discussions. Those were a lot of great questions. And our next item is the finance report. Ms. Brady?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every year, the district participates in the SCAGO Bond Resolution Program, which utilizes the district's 8% debt capacity to issue short-term general obligation bonds to help make principal and interest payments on outstanding long-term debt, as well as provide funding for the district's capital project program. In your board packet, you will find the bond resolution for the FY 24-25 program year not to exceed $9 million. This resolution covers the fall 2024 and the spring 2025 issuances and covers the principal and interest payments for the district's outstanding installment purchase revenue bonds, principal and interest payments for the technology acquisition loan, and capital project funding. Is there any questions on that resolution? You good?
I didn't see it in the board packet.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't.
I gave it to you. I did. I emailed it to you. I'm sorry. We'll get that to you. I apologize. Yep. I have a copy, but it's got to be signed. Sorry. We'll make you a copy. All right. Okay. All right. I apologize. There was a copy of it. I'll wait till Mr. Dr. Beeson brings it back so you can see it. I apologize. I know.
But Lacey, just quickly explain it. It's something we do every year.
Yeah, we do this every year. This is, we do this, we come to you every fall, and it's just an approval for us to issue those short-term bonds in the spring and the fall, and they help they allow us to make outstanding debt payments on principal, interest, and then also provide our capital projects funding. And this year, the resolution says not to exceed $9 million for the fall and spring issuances. And they cover the debt, the principal and interest payments for our internal for our installment purchase revenue bonds and our technology acquisition loans, and of course then gives Mr. McCraw his capital money to spend on our capital program.
Do you remember what the amount was last year, not to exceed?
I want to say it was around like $7 million. Yeah, Jody can look it up. It goes up. I will say that, it's based off our current interest payments that come due. So when you see that hike, we're trying to pay off that principal and interest.
And going through the SCAGO process, that's a substantial savings, isn't it?
It is. Yes, sir. It's our capital project funding. Mhm.
It was not to exceed 6.7 last year.
A little under 3 million, a little over 2 million. Actually, we just have additional capacity that we can use, and we'll gain more capital funding. Based off of revenue. It's based off our revenue collections.
The SCAGO has super great interest
I believe they were around 3% in the spring.
It's in your packet. She just sent it.
Correct. Correct. If you were to issue long-term debt, that would require you to go to a referendum debt. So the district allows you to issue up to 8% of your assessed value without having to do referendum debt.
SCAGO is South Carolina Association of Governmental Organizations.
Yes, ma'am.
So everybody pools together and gets a better interest rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? Okay.
Mhm.
So when we say not exceeding 9 million, do we draw out 9 million, or
It's usually under. What they do is they take like an estimate of what our principal and interest is, and then they add a little bit of a cushion in there. It's usually a few $100,000 less. I think this year it's going to be more, probably about 8.4 million. They use that cushion in case interest rates go up.
My interest is to ask, is there any way to reduce the interest payment that we would have? The 9 million is, we need it. We could use some of our general fund, but not for this, right? It's not intended or possible to use it for that. Just standard business, actually.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we would entertain a motion to approve the SCAGO bond resolution for not more than $9 million.
I'd like to ask one more question. Do you know how much money in interest it approximately will save us by doing this?
I don't, but I can, when they get me those numbers, I can give those to you. They usually, I'd have to pull that information, and get back to you on that one.
But it is a net savings for the district to do this?
Yes,
in
ma'am.
interest payments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If we were to borrow on our own, we'd have a higher interest rate.
Sure.
Mhm.
This has always been pretty standard, all the districts pretty much follow SCAGO, because it is a better interest. It's just a common practice, almost a common practice, I would say.
Yeah, there are very few districts who do not participate. It'd be the.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Have a motion?
I'll second.
Have a second of Mr. Cawthorn. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you for the information on our budget year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We, we'll we'll provide a more concrete, report in September on where we're gonna be.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And with no further business, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion by Ms. Baker,
Second.
second by Mr. Holden. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you, it's unanimous. You all.